Let's start this thing, Paul.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to another episode. Today, we've got a special guest. His name is Alistair Robinson, and he has been a long-lost friend that we've known for quite some time. I'd say over 15 years. Was it 15 years, I'd say?
Yeah, it's 2006, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, probably about 15, 16 years.
Wait, you guys knew each other since 2006?
No, you're legit, because I knew when you were still at school. So that's 2006 when you graduated, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's right, because I met you then. But I think I get you to introduce yourself, Al. Obviously, who you are, what are you doing now, and we'll go from there.
All right, man. Ooh, who am I? So my name's Al, and I'm your friendly neighborhood chemical engineer, martial arts enthusiast, and serial hobbyist.
What kind of hobby?
Oh, man, everything.
Yeah.
Like everything. Like I'm like one of those people who just like, ever since I stopped doing martial arts as much, if there's like one thing to try, I've done everything from like diving, rock climbing to like spending heaps of time tying knots. Like I'd probably knit if someone wanted to teach me how to knit. Like I'd do that for fun.
That's cool.
Shit, that's actually interesting to know because I didn't think you would do most of those things that you just mentioned, only because knowing you from back then, it was very specific, right? So it's more so you doing, I think we did badminton together, for an example, MMA, so Muay Thai, BJJ. And I remember you fucking teaching me how to do those things, even though you're younger than me. I think I was always into martial arts since I was young. So having that opportunity to get into a gym, first and foremost, and I think that's the scariest part, is walking into a gym and learning, but being taught by yourself. I think it was eye-opening to see your skill set. It was something that I've always wanted to do. So experiencing that with you, with all our friends at the time as well, was really something of an experience to know that you are a hobbyist and how much you've sort of grown from that point.
Oh man, well, like, because if you think about it, martial arts was my hobby, right?
Yeah.
I was doing that like 6 days a week. And if I wasn't doing it 6 days a week, I was at home watching fights, and I was watching old fights. I would watch UFC fights from like 1993. I'd be watching kickboxing fights. Like I just watched all of it. So it was just, that was my life. So when you take that away,
You gotta find something.
it's like you just don't have to find anything. Honestly, for part of it was a bit freeing. I was like, oh shit, I have the opportunity to try all these things. As if I wouldn't. You know, we'll get into that. Like I'm sure we'll talk about it and be like, oh yeah, Al did all these things and he had this crazy experience. But like, I love martial arts, but I also love the fact that I can go through my whole life trying new experiences and just getting to see what everyone else does. You know, there's something to enjoy in everything. So I don't want to die and go, oh shit, I wish I tried that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's good that you're exploring those other avenues too, because it's exactly that. Because other people get scared to try new things, man. So I think it's good that you are curious to explore those options too.
Yeah, well, I didn't know how to swim when we were friends.
I know.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
probably
I
why you're
really
like,
used
oh,
to
it's
be
a bit
scared of
weird.
swimming.
Oh, really?
No, I still am.
You still
like,
are?
I still am scared of swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the fear now is manageable enough for me, and the joy I get from diving is worth it. You know, like you go like, oh man, like when I dive to this day, like I still go underwater and I have to breathe. I have to do it really calmly because otherwise, like I just start getting panicked. And you know, so it's like a bit of a meditative experience to go underwater.
Yeah.
But the fear is always there.
That's cool though,
But it's
because
fun,
you
it's fun.
manage your fear and you actually go through it and just do what you love.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, it's I'm still scared of swimming. Surfing's probably one of the next thing I want to try.
Nice.
But I'm still scared of the surf because that's like the closest I've ever been to drowning has always been in
the waters.
in waves.
Yep.
You know, and like I've gone out to the waves a few times with like diving gear, and that's been like, it's been okay, but wasn't really my most comfortable experiences. But so I feel like surfing looks cool, you know, like you see people surfing like, oh man, it looks sick.
It's
like that guy's just floating.
Yeah,
Like, I
it's
want to do
hard
that.
though.
Yeah.
I tried surfing and like, I don't know, it's just that when you fall off and the waves is like crashing and your foot is like tied to the surfboard, that's like the thing that scares me, because I'm like, my leg's gonna get like chopped off, or like the board's gonna like hit me and I'm gonna get chopped in half, and like it's scary because like all the water's just like rumbling and circling.
And I guess I'm gonna, if I do it, I'm gonna have to wait. When I do it, I'm gonna have to like do like the baby classes. Like
they teach you though, like they show you, they bring you to the shallow wave area, so you can just like, you know how they jump on the board, they just glide on their stomach, you do that first, then you like hop on, and like, so they take you through steps. They don't just like, here go find a wave and
man, I'm so far down, like I'm probably have to start a kids pool and just get someone to splash water. Go to start way down here.
Go to Wet n Wild when that little wave pool starts.
That's actually a good place to practice.
No,
actually,
I almost drowned in Wet n Wild.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Really?
like, well, yeah, legit. Because it was in year 8, they had like this end of year thing. And we're going to Wet n Wild. And I was like, I don't know how to swim. And some kids were like, go in the wave pool. And me, being an idiot, thought like, oh yeah, you go like, as long as you're not deeper than like waist deep, it's fine. So I ran out. I was like, oh man, like it's up to my chest, it's okay. And then, you know, waves don't obey that. Like they kind of like, it's at your chest as it's a standard thing. Yeah. And I just got clean.
Oh,
and a lifeguard came and got me.
Shit, is that when you first got your like scared of swimming experience?
No, because I got caught in waves and like on like a year 8 camp as well.
Shit.
It's just people like teachers didn't understand that like there's a kid from another country who literally did not know how to swim. And so yeah, there's a few awkward learning experiences with that as well.
Wait, so a little background about you. When did you move to Australia?
So I moved here end of 2004, around like start of 2005. Yeah.
And where did you come from?
So I came from the Philippines. Yeah. So I grew up there. Actually, I was born in Australia, moved back to the Philippines when I was really young. Then I was there until I was like, 13, and then moved back over here.
Okay. Yeah. And then did you want to run through, because you said it's a long lost friend. So what happened in between? How did you guys reconnect?
We were talking about this off the mic before, but we were obviously really close initially in 06, 07. I think maybe to like 2009. I think it's 09.
Like,
it was like a few solid years where we were like really, really close.
Yeah.
And as life progresses, we sort of drifted off. And I think we never had that, I guess, closure. I wouldn't say closure, but we never really had that understanding as to what happened. So I think it was just more so like life happened. I was going through my shit at the time. I'm sure you were learning as well. You were going through high school and stuff like that. You were finishing, right? 09?
Yeah, 09 is when I finished, and then it would have been like, then I started uni. Yeah, and a bunch of other things happened at that time, but like it's the same thing. We just kind of like
life just happened.
Yeah.
Shit just gone the way, and then like next minute, it's 10 years later, you're like, oh shit, what the hell happened here? Yeah.
Life happened, progressed. That's when we lost in contact. And there was a solid 15 years. I was always like, fuck, where's Al? I always saw Yannick, but I never like saw you with him. So I was like, where the fuck is this guy? And I always used to ask him, like, where is Al? And he's like, oh, yeah, Al's fucking doing this. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I remember, like, because most people, they keep in touch through social media, like Facebook or Instagram. But I know you don't use.
I don't like social media.
Yeah. So I realized that you got rid of your socials. Yeah,
pretty much. Look, I'll be up front. I recently got back on Facebook literally to use Marketplace, because it seems like Marketplace has just stabbed Gumtree and it's taken over that. So I had to kind of do that to buy a few things, but otherwise, I don't use social media.
Yeah, there was a solid few years where I was trying to reconnect with you. And I remember I used to see your sister a lot too at gym, and just random, because I used to play badminton like randomly here or there, and she was playing actively. So I was trying to sort of try and get back in touch with you.
Yeah.
So, dude, it's kind of a miracle that Yannick gave me your number.
Well, yeah, I mean, you should have just done it anyway.
It only took 10 years.
Yeah, it took 10 or so years to get your number. So
it gives like one digit a year.
Pretty much, hey, like. But that's how we basically reconnected.
Well, yeah, you just randomly messaged me and you're like, hey, man, what are you up to? I'm like, oh, shit, Sam, we want to talk to him in ages.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was super stoked when I don't know how we found out about Samson's shop. But yeah, like, look, not having social media for the most part, I think is a positive thing for my life, but that's definitely something I still struggle with. I'm like, oh, man, there's probably minimum amount that I need to have and use so that I don't lose contact with people.
Yeah. I think like for me in terms of social media, like I have it. The main one I use is Instagram. I do scroll a lot, but like I think it's also discipline in terms of how long you scroll or like how much you look into it. So I think like it's good to have it there, but like my Facebook, I have it there, I don't touch it. So like sometimes people are like, hey, I like tagged you or like I messaged you. I'm like, oh really? And then that's when I check, because otherwise like I just stay off it, because you can get into that little like train of just like scrolling nonstop. But like once you get used to it, you know it's there just to like reconnect with people if you want to chat, then that's cool. But otherwise I don't really use it much for other things.
That's hard, man. Like it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
Like when you say discipline, but like, and it is discipline for sure, but then you're fighting a business model set up to pull you back in. And I don't blame anyone. Like I would never look down at anyone who's like, oh, I'm on Instagram all the time. Like it's hard not to be.
Yeah,
like,
it is hard.
That's why I cut it out, because I'm like, I'm the exact kind of personality that would just love to scroll through shit, right?
Yeah.
And and I've done a few experiments where I'll make a temporary Instagram account just to see how long it takes for me to get hooked on it. Man, it's so quick. Like they're so good at it. Like
but you can actually set like on, I think Facebook, I don't know, but on Instagram you can set times. So like it'll be like, hey, you've been on this for like 2 hours in total on a day.
I'd snooze that shit so quickly. like
dismiss.
that'll be gone. Swipe that away.
That's funny as.
Anyway, so yeah, a bit of a background of how you guys met, but you guys obviously went to school together, and background from what I know is you both were kind of the only Asians in the school.
Well, I don't know about you, Al, but my grade, there was fuck all Asians. It was only like 3 guys.
Oh, we had a few of us. We're all a bit awkward though, I'll tell you that. Yeah. There's probably like a good 6 of us.
Out of like, how big was your cohort again?
Man, I think we would have been like 150.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing for me.
Yeah.
150 or so, but there was only like 4 Asians.
Yeah.
3 or 4 Asians.
Yeah, so this whole conversation, we wanted to talk about being bullied, but not particularly just being because you guys were the only Asians, but just talking about kind of experience in school with bullying, and just talking around that, like what you were like back then, like your personality, how you stood up for yourself. And so that's what we wanted to cover.
So for me, I had a pretty shit experience in school. I know that I met you in 06, so that's like when I was in last year of school. But prior to my last year of school, man, it was pretty rough. It was constantly bullying. The only way that I could fight back was to tee up with guys who are like older than me, and we used to gangbang, beat the guys up. We used to get them back, and that was the only way that we could get back at these guys. So my experience in school was always like, because I was just different.
But what type of bullying?
It was all forms. It was part physical. It was part, or mostly vocal. That was my experience in school. But in saying that, my personality was hugely different. The opposite. Very timid, very shy. Never really spoke openly. And I think that was partly because that was how my parents taught me to be. Just kind of like, stay in the shadows, don't cause a scene, you know what I mean?
Like, walk away.
Yeah, just walk away and let them be. And that was my mentality at the time, because mum, dad, or, friends of parents are like, man, don't worry about fucking getting into fights. Just let them do their thing, walk off. But I felt that was totally the opposite, because you're essentially allowing the person, the bullier, to keep digging and digging.
So they think that they can, take over you.
Yeah, of course, control you, manipulate you, whatever it is, whether it's physical. And generally Asians, we don't grow as big compared to these.
Yeah, your body frames.
Me? Yeah. I'm lucky to get on rides.
Yeah, so that's exactly that though. You know what I mean? Like it's like when we compare our body composition to others, we're tiny, we're weak. You know what I mean?
Should show a photo of what you looked like back then, because
fuck,
people are going to see this
Yeah,
video.
dude, you're super skinny.
Yeah,
super skinny back then.
I was really, really skinny. So I think that's probably what motivated others to maybe bully. I don't know. But that's how I felt led to most of those situations.
So did it start as like vocal bullying first, and then they started to pick on you physically?
I think, yeah. So I think it definitely started as vocal and eventually went into more physical shit.
Is it because you didn't retaliate? And
I think it's because I didn't retaliate. I think the way I handled some of those situations weren't probably the most ideal. Yeah, I was just never confrontational. I never replied. I just kind of like let them do what they needed to do.
Yeah.
But I also knew that because I was a lot smaller than most of those guys, it's kind of like, well, what am I going to do? Even if I did something to them, I don't have that power. I don't have that strength.
But at what point did you start to gather other people and
Man, it was only until like year 11 or 12. That's when I was like, okay, I've had enough of this shit. That's when I used to I had Steve's older brother used to be in my home class. So I used to tell him about all my struggles and he's like, all right, let's just round up some boys and let's fuck these guys up. I'm like, all right, cool, let's do that. So we used to gather maybe 10 of us and we'll just find the guys individually and we just fucking...
Damn, man, gang wars, hey? That's
that's the only way that we had to get back at them, man.
Yeah.
That was year 11 to 12. That was sort of that period of when we did all that sort of retaliation.
what about you? What's your...
Man, I had a pretty different experience of that.
Yeah.
Hey? Like I grew up in the Philippines, then came here for high school basically. And I got bullied for being white in the Philippines because I'm half.
Yeah.
And I got attempted to be bullied for being Asian when I was in high school in Australia.
Wow.
So it's and it just highlights kids just want to pick on someone because they just want to go, well, shit, I don't want to get picked on. So if I pick on someone else, it's going to be you establish that pecking order quick.
That's so sad though.
And, so I'm just different in every country. So, yeah. And so I just got bullied for that. I got bullied pretty bad in the Philippines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pretty bad.
Whoa.
Just
was
because
that?
you're white? Is that why?
Yeah, it was a bit like that. So I was white, so I was really different because it was more common to see an Asian kid in Australia than it was to see a white kid in the Philippines, especially at these Filipino schools.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the white kids were international schools and stuff. But I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And when my dad was still around in the Philippines, he was just the spectacle that people would see. So people around the place would know that I was the kid of this one white guy in a 10-kilometer radius. And, everyone just thought we were loaded. But my dad left us in the Philippines. So we actually had very little money. And so then I was getting bullied for being white. I was getting bullied for being rich when we definitely weren't. And I was really my dad left us. And it was really bad to us. And so I was a little bit of an angsty kid as well. And I was always raised to be a bit of a softie when I was in the Philippines.
True.
And the same thing, right? Kids just pounce on that. And I ended up having to change schools when I was in the Philippines.
It was that bad?
It was pretty bad.
Damn,
because it got to the point that the grade shrank down. That's a completely different story. But I was in a big school, a grade with a bunch of kids, and then a bunch of shit happened at that school, and it was down to 9 kids, including myself.
Wow.
And out of the 9 kids, 8 of them bullied me, and 7 of them bullied me. And the only one that didn't bully me was my cousin who actually went to school with.
What the?
That's screwed up.
And then, but then I moved to Australia, and it was different. So I struggle with accents, and I wasn't I didn't know how to talk shit yet, because I couldn't quite understand Australian slang properly or what kids were saying. I was I don't know.
Yeah, she still struggles
I don't
with
know
that
what this kid's about. So
Yeah.
nothing really happened. I think I made pretty good friends really quickly. People seemed to have left me alone. Then there was this one kid who, he started a little bit later than everyone. So he came in, tried to bully me straight away for being Asian.
Wow.
Really?
And I was like, oh shit, what do I do about this? We got into a fight straight away.
Yeah.
And it worked out really well for me because he left me alone straight away after that. And I was really lucky because my mum, once we moved to Australia, she was just it's just us. Man, you go stand up with yourself. Someone picks a fight with you, you fight back. And
That's good, man. At least your mom actually told you that, dude.
Yeah, and so that worked out. And then the only other time was I was a little bit older, and then this much older kid called me a gook.
What the fuck?
Yeah, he just started yelling at me, gook. And I didn't know what gook was.
Yeah,
I had to go home and Wikipedia. I was like, what the hell's a gook? And it took me ages. And I spent ages. So I was like, so it started in the Philippines during World War II. And I'm it was just, anyway, the point of that is it was a long time before I came to terms with what he actually even called me and what he was trying to say. So that really kind of fizzled as a bullying experience. And I think for him, he was like, I'm going to bully this kid. And this kid's just really confused looking what the fuck are you trying to get at, man? And so that kind of fizzled. I was a bit of a boring target. And then after that, when I started talking and being a bit more interactive with people, I actually came to school once after a fight. So I had a limp, I had a black eye, and I had this big egg on my forehead.
Oh,
and everyone found out that I did Muay Thai. And after that, all of a sudden people
respected you.
People left me alone. People respected me. They talked to me normal, and then no one fucked with me.
But wait, so fight as in you actually did an amateur fight, or
yeah. So I had a fight, and I was I would have been 16, and I was busted up, man. This guy fucked me up. And and then after that came to school, people just always left me alone. Like I never got bullied like that.
That's
like I had
fucking-
a few attempts and then it just kind of fizzled.
I feel like that's so sad though. Like when they know that you can't pick on them anymore, they'll leave you alone. But it's like when they feel like they can pick on you, they will come and pick on you, which is really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what though? There's also like the benefit for like we went to an old boys school, right? And old boys schools are like they're brutal, sure. But at some point, like kids terribly respond to violence. Like boys do seem to respond to violence. I've heard stories about girls who went to old girls schools, and the bullying that they told me about, I was just like, man, like that's like, I'd be emotional to this day if I went to that. Like, man, like I'd rather just get punched in the face.
Yeah, girls bully in a different way. Like they kind of like two-faced.
It's emotional, right?
Yeah.
They fuck with your feelings and shit like that more so.
I went to an all-girls school too. Went to girls' grammar in Canberra. I'm
True.
pretty sure I probably was bullied, but I'm like that boring target where I did not know what was happening and they just like left me alone.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they were probably like saying things and I'm just like, whatever.
Well, they want you to buy it. And you're like, oh man, I don't know what's going on. Leave me
Yeah,
alone.
because it's partially, I think it's like a blessing in disguise that like, because even though, I was born here, but I would say I don't reciprocate English and like conversational English that well. Like people would say things and they don't click on and they'll just say, you know, like give you shit or something. And I'll be like, oh, okay. And that's it. So I think at that point, people just didn't really like do anything.
So then that bullying that you had or experienced in the Philippines, was that just mostly vocal or was that actual like physical?
Nah, man, I got into a fight with like every single boy in my class.
Holy
Wow.
fucking
Yeah.
shit, dude.
Yeah, it was bad. Like, well, look, like my dad left us in the Philippines. That's what led the circumstance there. He was really violent. And so I think when I was in school and being a kid, all of a sudden getting confronted with all this like these angry kids who just want to pick fights. The only thing I knew to do was not say anything. It was just to fight back because that's all I really knew is what you did when someone was being, angry towards you. And that like that's exactly what I had to leave. I just go and punch up with every single kid. I don't do that anymore, guys. But
Yes.
But what were the emotions that you were going through when you were being picked on, like say in the Philippines?
Yeah, what were you thinking, man? Like, because obviously you're being young, it's something that's relatively new to you because it's like, oh shit, all these people are like giving me shit or I don't even understand what the hell they're saying.
And you're so young too,
Yeah.
like you don't know what's happening. Like what were you feeling?
do you guys ever hear about like the psychology experiment where they ostracize someone by tossing a ball? So it's like the idea behind is like they set up an experiment where everyone is under the impression that they're going to go into another experiment. And in the waiting room, everyone who's there can't talk, but they toss a ball between each other. Just someone the other participants initiate it. And at one point in that waiting period, the participants who are in on it start tossing the ball between each other. And someone who's the subject doesn't get the ball anymore. And when they're interviewed afterwards about their feelings towards those people in the waiting room, they will say things like, you're just completely outrageous shit. Like, they're like, I want to kill them. Like, I absolutely hate them. Like, I love them with a passion. I wish harm on them. You know, that's the kind of stuff that ostracizing does to people. And I think when I was a kid, that's what I realized is that I didn't know what I was feeling. But I just knew that there's just something primal inside you when you're being excluded and people are actively trying to move you away. You know, it's fear, it's anger, it's sadness, it's frustration, it's just most of the time just confusion because you have no idea what the fuck's going on. You're a kid.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's like. It's ostracizing, and that comes with so many different confusing experiences.
Yeah. That's a really good way to explain it though, yeah.
Yeah, because I'd say for me it was probably the same, the way you explained it. Being on that receiving end, definitely that anger, but at the same time confusion because you're like, what the fuck is going on, right?
Yeah.
Like, why is everyone...
You're just going to school to go
you're
to
just
school.
going to school, man.
Yeah,
Like,
why you? Why me? Why today? Why, you know?
Exactly. So the way you explained it is exactly that. It's all those emotions, but ultimately it's the confusion part at the end of it.
Because you almost just want them to like, you want to find out that once upon a time you accidentally kicked that dude's dog, right?
Yeah.
It's just something to give some context to the situation, some reason for that experience that you're having. But You don't. You just, turns out kids are just shitty sometimes. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and people are a bit shitty as well. Like when in those situations, they're just
Yeah.
confused, have no idea what to do with their lives, and they do shitty things.
Yeah,
that's
and
true.
sometimes it could even stem back like they have issues at there, like
sure.
at home,
Yeah,
family
absolutely.
problems. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I remember at my school, like high school, someone started a fight all because like a basketball rolled in front of them and hit their foot, and then they had like, you know, that alleyway that we have, like they just started a massive fight. I think it went on the news, like machetes and like shit came out, and it was because of that. You know, yeah, like I don't know if that was the real reason. But when I heard, I was like, "What? Like a basketball? Like, yeah. It was just
Wow.
stupid." And I think
That's-
people just want to start fights, just they want to start fights.
I think because they, like Al
tension.
said, like they're young, so that the inner primal comes out. They're like, oh, yeah, something's happened. It may be something that's small, or it might be something that's really big, but it's the fact that it's them. They just want to fucking do shit out.
Yeah.
So it's something like that. A basketball rolling in front of their feet, just hitting their feet. It's just like, what the fuck?
Don't hold me to that story though.
Well,
I don't
I
know
mean,
if it's true.
Look, most fights basically occur because something stupid has happened.
yeah.
Miscommunication, or they've interpreted a scenario or a situation wrongly or inaccurately, and that's how fights start.
Yeah. The
Right?
thing that I find like the most stupidest thing is like, oh, you looked at me or something, and then
Dude,
what are you
I remember
looking-
this brought up a big thing. 2007, we went to this fucking
I know what you're about to cover. I know exactly what
we
you're
went
bringing
to
up.
play pool across the road from Market Square. They used to have a pool thingy queue at the corner of the Sunny Park, and it was me, Al, and two other of our mates who are Aussie or white, if you want to call them that.
Yeah,
we
we
were
call them
finishing.
Aussie, but they're definitely white.
Yeah, definitely white, but we were playing, and then we finished up,
Yeah.
and we were walking out. So me and Al were walking together. We're at
Yeah.
the door, and our two other friends were behind us, and I think one of them kind of like glanced at one of these dudes, and this dude fucking still, what the fuck you looking at? You want to go, cunt? And all these Asian dudes stood up. I think I
Yeah.
can't remember how many there was.
It was like the entire fucking like
The
pool
whole
hall.
pool.
Yeah. And we were already outside, so we had no
Yeah.
idea what was going on. Then we walked back in and we're like, oh shit, some things are going on in here.
Yeah, so like those kind of situations, like if you're just glancing or you're just glaring over, like why would you get so arky over
Yeah, I
that?
find that so stupid. Like, dude, can I not use my eyes?
Yeah.
Like, I have my eyes for a reason.
So
yeah, that's a bit strange. And but that's also weird shit that happens in group dynamics, right? Like,
yeah, true.
you know, it's like every time there's like someone who's just like, you know, they're in a group, everyone changes a bit, and then,
Yeah.
like, and some people get real fucking weird. Like we had another story that's relevant to that, which was, so one time well, there's actually multiple times that this happened, but this was the one I'm thinking about, was at the Suncorp Piazza, when it was still the Suncorp Piazza.
Oh yeah.
And then there was this big event. I can't remember what it was for. And there was a bunch of Asian dudes and a bunch of like Sudanese like teenagers as well. And they had like a dance battle, which is, you know, very funny
yeah, I
teenager
remember
thing to
those.
do. And like this one Sudanese dude beat this Asian guy in a dance battle and disrespected them. And all of a sudden, all the Asian dudes went around and were like, we're going to fuck this dude up when the fireworks start at 12 o'clock. Must have been New Year then, now I think about it. And then,
hell?
and yeah, then all of a sudden all the Sudanese guys heard about that, and there was like, everyone was organized as a massive brawl. I was like,
my
what the
God.
hell, guys? Like,
Yeah.
someone was just dancing. Why are you guys
Yeah.
just going to go and try to kill each other now?
Yeah, that's so extreme.
I think I remember that. And I remember that situation because I was talking to Al. I was like, what the fuck is going on? We were just dancing, dude. And it just blew
Oh, were
up.
you guys in that group?
Yeah, because we used to go to all those dance stuff because we used to break dance, and Al used to try and crump.
Good old crump
That was a good
days.
attempt, yeah.
Yeah, and we used to do like popping and waving and shit
That's
like
cool.
that. Yeah, so during that period, that was when we did a lot of dance stuff. And exactly that, you get those kind of groups where people would essentially react.
Yeah, it's weird. Just some weird tribal shit that happens, and then, yeah.
So, what did you guys learn from these like bullying or like these kind of experiences?
Dude, for me, massively is reaction. To react. I think that was the biggest thing that I realized later in my years, was to retaliate as opposed to just leave it be, because it never worked for me. That's my experience, was more so if I just let it happen and just stay quiet, as I was told by parents, it always escalated in my experience. But every time that I've reacted, it always did the opposite. Like how you experienced, people left you alone. That's a weird experience for me. Like normally if you retaliate, it kind of sometimes in some situations it would brew it and it would continue. But for me, it always just stopped.
Because for me, I feel like there's a fine line between retaliating and also staying quiet. Like sometimes you have to pick your battles to let things be, but it's like, when do you know to actually retaliate or say something about it?
That's actually a good point. What do you think, Al?
Man, I had the complete opposite experience
Yeah.
too. Yeah, because I was like that angry teenager shit where I was really more than willing to get into a fight. Like that went on all the way up until I was like turning 20, and it was bad. It wasn't a good way. It's a terrible lesson to realize that you're willing to accept violence as a conclusion to confrontation.
Which I don't think is
it's not. No, it's not. And it should basically never be the way. It's like, to me, the answer is it's there when you feel like something truly needs to be protected. Someone's truly going to harm you. Violence is no longer an option because they're about to use it on you. Whip it out, sure.
Yeah,
but up until that point, man, like the being able to recognize what's happening and be able to pull communication out of someone even when it looks like communication is lost is something that I think the biggest thing I've always taken away from it.
Yeah.
It's like understanding why someone is doing what they're doing. You know, it seems hard in so many situations, but like you said, like a lot of times it's because like you might find out that kid or that person has some shit going on at home, and what are you arguing with? What are you fighting with? You're fighting with emotions that are completely unrelated to that situation.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways it can end badly if you choose violence and retaliation.
Yeah.
Diffusing it, sometimes you got to swallow your pride. Sometimes you got to talk to someone. Sometimes you just got to be kind. But it's hard, but it's the best way. But you have to be confident.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You can't be scared. You can't be meek. But you have to be. You have to approach a scary situation, being a bit scared, but also knowing that you're standing up for yourself to not be violent.
Is there a certain question that you'll ask them? Like if they were like some raging dude is coming at you, like about like picking on you or like about to like pick a fight with you, is there something that you would ask to kind of diffuse the situation?
Look, I think the first thing is always body language, right?
Yeah.
You know, if someone's coming up to you and you're sticking your chest down, well, I mean, shit's probably going to go down.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not going to work out. You know, putting your hands up, backing away, you know, asking, like saying that you're not going to do anything. Look, I'm not looking for a fight. I'm not looking to do any of these things. I'm not looking to start a fight. I'm not looking to harm you. I am not looking to do anything here. Like you have to show that that's not the answer you're looking to provide.
Yeah, because you'll end up giving what they want, right? If they're trying to pick on you.
If someone, well, it's like that bullying situation you talk about, right? Like some kid tried to call me a racist term. It didn't work on me because I had no idea what the fuck was going on, right? And in a way, that's a bit analogous to that situation. I can come along and say, he wants violence, I'm not escalating. If it ends with me, then there's much fewer scenarios where that dude ends up trying to punch me in the face. Yeah. And if he does it anyway, oh, fuck, I couldn't have done anything about that anyway, sure.
Yeah.
But 90%, 95% of the time, it doesn't have to be that way. Someone just wants to, you know, fluff their feathers up, look scary, whatever, man. Like, you don't have to choose violence.
Yeah, I agree with that.
See, the funny thing is in my earlier 20s, I was always, I wouldn't say violent, but I had a short fuse. I think my personality changed that way because after school, that was what taught me to be like that. Situations where it would stem to violence, we would always take the violence route for some reason. But I think it's just the mentality of all our mindset at the time was, okay, well, we're young, fuck it. You know, we've been through situations where if we don't retaliate or we probably handle it in a immature way, in a way where you explained before, if you could just think about it and communicate, understand the situation and scenario before sort of, you know, resorting to violence, we probably could have handled it in a much different way, right? But in that earlier 20s, that was always my mind frame was, okay, well, if something's going to go to that point, let's just go 0 to 100. And that was just the better way to basically handle the situation, which when you think back, it's really stupid, right? Because violence isn't obviously the best way to handle most situations. As you said, when it gets to a certain point where you go, okay, well, this is a life or death situation, then you obviously got to throw hands, whatever. But that was my mind frame in my early 20s. It was always violence, and I had to think that way.
Yeah, and I just think like if you're gonna choose violence, like this is before they like started throwing hands or something, you're just being the same as that person who's choosing the violence.
Yeah, and I think the mentality there is if someone is already wanting to throw hands, if I'm being nice about it, they're still gonna fucking keep coming at me without thinking, okay, you can diffuse the situation. So it's always like, okay, well, let's just fucking go straight to throwing hands and get it sorted because we're out in the streets or whatever it is. That was the mentality of us back then. Like that was what we were always thinking.
Yeah, because you're kind of feeding into it too. You're kind of like, because they're like, oh, okay, let's fight. And you're like, yeah, okay, let's fight. And then both of you are like agreeing and then you're feeding into that violence.
Well, you've accepted a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah,
You're just going, oh, look, this dude's don't want to fight me. I better just beat him to the punch. And you're like, oh shit. Like now you go to court, who punched first.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. And that's the thing that me specifically realized later in the years is, okay, well, is it really worth being violent? Because like you said, you can go to court. It's a criminal charge. You know what I mean? It can affect your life in different ways. And at the end of the day, it's just fucking not worth it, right?
Yeah.
So the way that you handle your situations of, okay, let's assess the situation, let's diffuse it by non-violence, that it all makes sense when you think about it from a holistic point of view.
I mean, it's all well and good for me to say that nowadays, but you also got to understand that, like, I got into a lot of fights as a teenager all the way up until my early 20s.
Yeah.
I was very willingly choosing it because, like, I was capable of it, and I had it. I was training at the time. I did lots of martial arts. I was training 6 days a week. I was, oh, you know what? Let's see, wants to throw down. That's cool.
Use my skills.
This is like it's fine. But like I knew 3 guys, I think it is, who went to prison for GBH, who I trained with.
Wow.
Yeah, grievous bodily harm for.
Yep.
Those of you who don't know what that is, in the assault. Crowd.
Shit, so they actually served time.
Yeah, for sure. I knew one guy served 18 months.
Just because he threw the first thing?
Man, look, I always get the story from the people who went to prison, right? So I don't get the story of the victim.
Yeah.
But I know one person who punched someone in what seemed to be, from his perspective, a self-defense scenario. And he went to prison because the other guy went blind from the punches they threw. You hear stories about hitting the ground. And like all the training I do, I train on comfy ass mats. You get taken down, you hit your head on the mat, and you're like, oh shit, bumped my head. That was a bit sore.
Yeah.
You don't die.
Yeah.
Like
as opposed to concrete ground or
what
something.
What are you playing with? Do you really want to go to prison for 18 months? Like, is that like, even if that was a 0.01% chance, do you want to fucking roll those dice? Like, I don't, like, it's not worth it. Why? Just go home.
Yeah, true.
Go home, make some coffee, eat some nice food.
Make some coffee.
Work on your hobbies.
Yeah, but you obviously mentioning that you did training for the listeners. What did you train specifically?
All in all? Oh man, so I started doing Taekwondo. I did a bit of boxing. I did traditional Filipino stick martial arts. I did Taekwondo in Australia. I realized that was a bit of a scam in terms of like, you don't actually fight when you know Taekwondo. Sorry to anyone who's listening who knows Taekwondo. I took up Muay Thai. Then I took up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after someone showed me that they could mess me up despite being good at Muay Thai. Then I found myself a few freestyle wrestling coaches and I did freestyle wrestling. Tried a little bit of judo, but kind of sucked at it and didn't really work what I was doing. And so I ended up sailing with a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot of Muay Thai, and quite a bit of freestyle wrestling wherever I could.
Nice. And in terms of that, like, since we're talking about martial arts, do you think it's beneficial to know that for self-defense and like just having people to like leave you alone?
No, man. Because like the thing is like you fall into that. That now you want to use it.
Yeah, true. Hey?
Like you have that there. You don't think that for the most part, your line of thinking should be, I will actually try to diffuse this all the way up until it's unavoidable. And if I do get hit, I'm probably just going to sue the person. Some people might look down on that and be like, well, you know what? Might as well make some money out of it. And then the next thought is, if you truly feel like you're in real danger, sure, you can whip that out. Like, and it helps, and it gave me confidence, but I was lucky. I got into a lot of fights, and I got into a few fights in school, actually, despite knowing how to fight, where some kids actually messed me up. Not messed me up, but like caught me off by surprise, because I was just like, oh man, I'll take care of this kid. And this kid just fucking rugby tackled me, and I wasn't expecting to get rugby tackled. And it's just like, it gives you a false sense of what your capabilities are. And it really shouldn't, because you really should be relying on your instinct of going, I need to diffuse the situation.
Yeah.
And maybe a course on talking is going to be better for your self-defense than actual self-defense.
So do you think that it's, with all this, I wouldn't say social stigma, but there's a lot going on about self-defense and knowing self-defense. Because you see like fucking, was it karate ads, like, oh, you guys should learn how to do self-defense because you need to protect yourself. Do you think that shit is blown out of proportion?
Dude, fuck yeah. Put this in perspective, right? You learn Muay Thai, you learn Jiu-Jitsu, you ever done any martial art like that? Think about how hard it is just to learn how to throw a good punch. And now you got to go, okay, how hard is it to throw that punch at a moving target? Not a bunch of like training. How hard is it to throw that punch, step in with good footwork, anticipate where your target's going, and landing that shot? Pretty fucking hard. Yeah. You could probably do that for 8 months solid training, focusing on one punch, doing that movement against a bunch of different targets, and you'll still struggle with it because that people dedicate their lives to this training. And then you're telling me that someone's, for the sake of self-defense, is going to be able to pull that shit off when they're agitated, scared, confused against someone who's potentially bigger than them. And you're like, man, fuck no. Like, you can't pull that shit off. Like, you might as well talk them down, because you're not going to pull off your shitty punch and find out that you suck at whatever you're doing because this is not the scenario you're trained for. It's just like, we wouldn't make that assumption about any other activity, right? You wouldn't go, okay, look, man, like we're going to teach you casual abseiling, and then now we're going to chuck you off a helicopter and you're going to abseil off down the helicopter. You know, you don't do that shit. Well, we assume that for some reason everyone's going to be beasts once they learn some self-defense classes. Not happening. Like, get over it. Go, learn to talk. Choose non-violence. Still train martial arts on the side. That's what you should do.
So would you say like it's good to learn that skill, like the self-defense and all that, but don't try and use that as like the first response to things?
Oh yeah, man. Like you just like, you're delusional if you think it's going to work for the most part. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And one day you hear about, oh yeah, but this one person pulled it off. You're like, yeah, great. One person pulled it off. You don't hear the other people got humiliated. Now they have videos of them on YouTube getting knocked the fuck out.
That guy at the valley.
Did you see that valley?
I did. That dude who got head kick.
Yeah.
Was it a head kick or a hook? He did a hook or something.
No, he did I think he did a switch kick and it went straight to the head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just don't know what's out there. Yeah. And even like, you could be sore, right? You train 6 days a week, be sitting in the gym, and you go, man, my glutes are fucking tired today. I can barely stand up. Pretty common scenario. Yeah. And now you're going to go pick a fight in the valley. And you're like...
And also because, like, if you're with someone, like you're on a street fight, some people who don't know how to fight, they're doing different things as opposed to you sparring someone who actually knows, like, a Muay Thai partner. So it's like the movements are very different too.
Yeah, exactly. So many variables. You can't take them into account. You're not going to teach someone self-defense in a fucking 3-week course.
All right. Well, we'll come to some advice that you would tell your younger self in terms of being bullied.
What if I've been bullied?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, I had to think about that. For me, man, for me, it's like it's empathy, right? You just have to understand that it may be confusing, but there's a reason why someone's feeling that way, and it's important to be able to have that skill to step back, and it applies to your whole life, every situation, every confrontation you have, whether it's at a business meeting or someone is drunk on the street. Like there's always a level of empathy that you need to have. An understanding of what can go wrong. And if like, and when you do the math, you weigh it all up, you play the scenarios, it's never worth it.
No, but that's a really good one. Like I think exactly that same thing. Like you just need to know there's bigger things outside of the current situation. Like if someone's angry at you or someone randomly lashed out, like you need to think, why are they doing that? So I agree with that, like having that empathy.
Yeah. But I mean, like it's surprising that someone could be angry. And if you can be kind to them, you can change the situation.
Yeah.
Because you provide them the mirror where they look at it and go, actually, I'm being a fuckhead. That's literally something that will happen, in conversations whilst you're at work.
Have you done that before where someone's gone all arky at you and you've shown them empathy and you've tried to diffuse the situation and it actually worked?
Yeah, 100%. And that's something like you talk to people and you just go, hey man, look, what's wrong? What's happening here? And it works. And I've also had it fail. It's more often than not, but it's never led to me getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
What's led to me getting punched in the face is punching someone else in the face.
Yeah.
There's a high probability there.
Yeah.
There's some correlations that I think exist.
You're just adding to the fire, really. Yeah. Any other advice?
Yeah, it's up to you,
Well,
man.
for me, I think there's probably two parts. I think that the mature side of me is exactly that. It's probably just talking about the situation and understanding the situation. Obviously, diffusing that is better than violence, right? But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to maturity too, because you have to be mature to understand the situation first and foremost, because then you can be in that situation and be like, okay, what is happening? And being confident in yourself to actually confront the person and be like, hey man, relax. Because most times if you're being approached in a aggressive manner, you're thinking, what the fuck is going on? You're sort of either scared or you want to back off. But if you talk to the person to try to diffuse the situation, then it could go the other way, right? So I think that is what I would tell my younger self, is to be aware of those situations and to handle it in a non-violent way, or a better way to just talk to them about it.
Like, don't choose violence first.
Yeah.
Unless you really need to.
That person is just fucking throwing hands at you for no reason straight away.
Well, I tell you what, it's easier to learn footwork to get away from someone than it is to learn how to land
Run
and
away.
get in range.
Yeah.
Legit, teaching people how to sidestep, back away, cut angles to go backwards is actually not that hard to teach, and is probably going to be more effective as a self-defense position. And it would be really shit trying to go out and teach you self-defense. This is how you back away really artfully. Bit lame, but like probably the most truthful and accurate.
Yeah. And then any third advice for your younger self?
Oh man, from a bullying perspective,
Yeah,
a
just like
violence
in terms
perspective?
of, say, like a younger you was being bullied again, like what's like, it could be a mindset thing. Like, what would you tell yourself?
Man, I'll probably give myself the same advice I'd give for any situation, which is I would say you don't get peace anywhere else but right now. That's all there is to it. When you feel ostracized, you feel anxious, you feel worried, you feel all these things at any stage in your life. If you can't sit down with those feelings and let them pass, then you're always going to react poorly to a situation.
That's really good. Yeah.
That's a tough thing, man. Like that's like people are anxious, right? People are depressed and they have to sit down with the feelings they can't because it's so hard. And that's what things like bullying or, even a domestic violence situation, like someone is dominating over you, abusing you in any form, whether it's physical or emotional or financial, those same feelings pop up in those situations. And being able to understand that and cope with that is actually probably the most important thing you can have. And it was the thing that will allow you to think calmly in those situations.
Yeah. So what would you do in those, like, to find yourself that peace?
Oh man, that's a whole can of worms.
Yeah.
Like for me, I meditate.
Yeah.
I meditate a lot.
That's cool.
But I don't know if that's for everyone. I don't know if that's how everyone finds their peace. Some people find their peace by doing high adrenaline junkie shit. Maybe that's how it works for some people. But you have to be able to find it. And if you're not looking for it, then you're probably in a bit of trouble. You're not going to react to any situation well
Yeah.
when you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that self-awareness is probably the big one too, because you got to be in it to realize, okay, I need to do something about it, or go out and seek avenues to help you find peace in some way and form. But I think it's hard, especially if you're younger. You're probably most likely immature. So you're,
For sure.
you know what I mean? Like you're not gonna be really thinking about those things.
You're not born Zen, so you're not going to.
Yeah. So
You born in a way.
yeah. So, and like, I think what Al's mentioned and what I've said is probably what really sums it up, to be honest, because there's nothing more that you can really add to it, because at the end of the day, your mindset, your confidence, and just how you approach everything, like you were saying, Al, peace can be applied to many things, not just bullying, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, I think they're really good. I think you can only control what you can control, and if you have like that inner peace and you have a good, strong mind for yourself too, like you've done your best in that situation, and then the people who are like they're angry or they're wanting to fight, like that's them, like that's their own mind that you can't control, and until they know that themselves, you can't do much about it.
But that's not to say that you would accept a situation.
Yeah,
Like, no one should ever
accept.
accept feeling unsafe.
Yeah.
And so that situation when you were a kid and you're saying that all these other kids are bullying you, obviously you found a way to remove yourself from that situation, and that was to find other kids to help beat up other kids.
Yeah.
You know, violence begets violence. So
Well, yeah. See, that's yeah. Before we actually go, I want to hear one story from Al, because I know there was one story where you're on the bus and you got in a fight.
What?
it's gonna sound really bad, but which one?
I think there's one where I think you were the aggressor.
I got into a fight at a bus stop. I would consider the aggressor.
And it ended up throwing hands?
One of us threw hands, and it was more like elbows.
Damn.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. And I look, if this goes there and they're like, let's say, I'm not giving any details of that. There was another kid, let's call him La, and he was at a bus stop and someone was smoking. And being an angsty teenager, this kid was really willing to escalate situations. And the dude didn't want to stop smoking when asked. And he started spitting, which was really actually turns out a real big trigger that I mean, nowadays we're really aware of spitting as not being an acceptable thing.
Yeah, of course, that's dirty.
But yeah, that escalated the situation real quick.
Shit.
Yeah, it wasn't a good situation for them.
Yeah. Okay.
There was a lot of elbows thrown.
Yeah, nice.
And I think a few kicks, and a frantic run to the bus stop. Yeah.
Damn.
Well, at the end of the day, we don't condone violence, right? This is just a sample story. But
Just a story of what happened back then and what they learned.
Yeah, it's not like that's terrible. Like I'm ashamed of that. I'm sharing that because it's just the wrong way.
But it's good because your mind now means that you've grown from that.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
If you're say you're ashamed, means that you're not that person anymore.
Yeah, look, absolutely. But if you were racist 10 years ago and you can look back at it and say, I'm not racist now, and you can be proud of that, but it's still, you still carry shame.
Yeah. Well, once again, thank you for coming on and sharing these stories.
You're welcome.
And let us know what you guys think and share in terms of your experiences with bullying. Slide into the DMs, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Peace.